What's going on, man? What are you doing out here?
Shopping. Just minding my business.
I got a call about someone causing trouble. You match part of the description.
A description? You don't even know me.
Then show me your ID.
I'm not giving you ID without a lawful reason.
I can detain you until we figure this out.
Detain me, buddy? I'm the civil rights attorney.
Officer Dante Kavanaugh had been with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office for 11 months when he made a decision that would cost the county $4,700,000 and permanently end his career in law enforcement. One Saturday afternoon inside a suburban grocery store, everything changed. A man was standing at the checkout line with a basket of vegetables and juice, waiting to pay like hundreds of other customers that day. No disturbance, no theft, no complaint, just a man buying groceries. But Officer Kavanaugh saw him and made an assumption based on nothing but a vague radio call and racial bias. That assumption triggered a confrontation that would lead to a wrongful detention, a physical altercation in front of dozens of witnesses, and a lawsuit that exposed how undertrained deputies can destroy lives in minutes. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. North Scottsdale, Arizona, an affluent suburb where shopping plazas dot the landscape and well-maintained roads wind between residential communities. The Basha's supermarket on Pima Road sits in a busy strip mall surrounded by boutiques, coffee shops, and small businesses. Saturday afternoons bring steady traffic, with families loading groceries into SUVs, retirees moving methodically through their shopping lists, and fitness enthusiasts grabbing post-workout snacks and protein shakes. It was 1:45 in the afternoon in mid-April. The temperature outside was climbing toward 88 degrees, typical Arizona spring weather. Inside the store, industrial air conditioning kept everything comfortable at a steady 72 degrees. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting even illumination. Shopping carts rolled across polished tile floors. Soft pop music played through ceiling speakers barely audible above the ambient noise. Cashiers scanned items with practiced efficiency, self-checkout machines beeped periodically, everything was normal and calm. Just another unremarkable Saturday afternoon at a neighborhood grocery store where nothing dramatic ever happened. Attorney Jamal Richardson had been a civil rights lawyer for 17 years. 17 years representing plaintiffs in police misconduct cases, excessive force lawsuits, wrongful arrest claims, and constitutional violations. He'd won significant settlements against 5 different Arizona law enforcement agencies, including 2 separate high-profile cases against Maricopa County Sheriff's Office specifically. He testified as an expert witness in federal civil rights trials in Arizona, California, and Nevada. His testimony had helped secure justice for families who'd lost loved ones to police violence and for individuals who'd been subjected to illegal searches, unlawful detentions, and discriminatory enforcement practices. He taught continuing education courses to law enforcement agencies throughout Arizona and neighboring states. Constitutional policing, Fourth Amendment compliance, use of force standards, de-escalation techniques, implicit bias recognition. The classes were mandatory for many departments seeking to maintain accreditation or comply with court-ordered reforms. Jamal had stood in front of hundreds of officers over the years, explaining the legal boundaries of their authority, walking them through case law, showing them body camera footage of incidents gone wrong, teaching them how to avoid violating the rights of the people they were sworn to protect and serve. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office knew his name well. So did Phoenix PD, Tempe PD, Mesa PD, and Scottsdale PD. His work had made him respected in legal circles throughout the state and resented by some law enforcement administrators who viewed him as anti-police rather than pro-accountability. His colleagues in the legal community described him as brilliant, meticulous, and relentless in pursuing justice. His clients called him a fighter who never backed down from a challenge. Defense attorneys who faced him in courtrooms called him the opponent they least wanted to see walking through the door. That Saturday afternoon, Jamal wasn't thinking about police misconduct or pending litigation or the trial scheduled to start Tuesday morning. He was thinking about meal preparation and his weekly routine. He'd spent the morning at his gym working through an intense CrossFit session, gone home to shower and change, and decided to knock out his grocery shopping before the afternoon crowds made the store unbearable. He needed ingredients for his standard weekly meal prep that he'd been following for years. Chicken stir-fry loaded with vegetables, bell peppers in multiple colors, fresh broccoli crowns, snap peas, baby spinach, mushrooms, fresh fruit for his morning smoothies throughout the week, apples, bananas, maybe some berries if they looked good, a gallon of orange juice, several containers of Greek yogurt, basic staples that he purchased every single week without fail. a routine he'd established years ago when he decided to take his nutrition and health seriously. He moved through the produce section with practiced efficiency, selecting vegetables by feel and appearance, checking for firmness and color, comparing prices out of long ingrained habit. He added items to his basket methodically and deliberately, grabbed the orange juice from the refrigerated section along the back wall of the store, picked up the yogurt from the dairy case, walked toward the front of the store where the checkout lanes waited, mentally reviewing his list to make sure he hadn't forgotten anything important. The store was moderately busy at that hour, maybe 40 or 50 customers shopping throughout the various aisles at that moment, a young mother patiently negotiating with an overtired toddler in the cereal aisle, an elderly couple moving slowly and debating which brand of coffee to purchase, college-aged kids loading their cart with ramen noodles and energy drinks, a businessman still in his suit grabbing a pre-made sandwich for a late lunch, the usual cross-section of suburban Saturday shoppers, everyone focused on their own lists and schedules, minding their own business. Jamal chose a regular checkout lane staffed by a teenage employee because he had produce that needed to be weighed, and he preferred the human interaction over the impersonal efficiency of self-checkout machine. He stood patiently behind two other customers and pulled out his phone to check messages and emails. A text from his wife asking if he'd remembered to get the almond milk they needed. He smiled at his own forgetfulness, walked back to the dairy section to grab it, and returned to reclaim his spot in line. The customer at the front of the line was unloading a completely full cart methodically. This was clearly going to take several minutes. Jamal scrolled through his phone, catching up on emails and messages, completely unaware that his peaceful Saturday afternoon was about to become a traumatic incident that would make national news and cost Maricopa County millions of dollars in taxpayer money. Officer Dante Kavanaugh was 26 years old with limited life experience and even less law enforcement experience. He'd graduated from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office Training Academy 11 months earlier after completing the standard 20-week basic law enforcement program. His academy performance had been thoroughly unremarkable in every measurable way. Middle of his class in academics with no exceptional scores, adequate but not impressive scores on firearms qualification, passing marks on defensive tactics training, satisfactory completion of scenario-based training exercises without standing out positively or negatively. Nothing exceptional that would make him a standout recruit. Nothing concerning enough on paper to prevent his graduation. Just another young recruit who met the minimum standards required and moved forward to field training. But his instructors had noted something troubling in their private evaluations and internal discussions, something that didn't quite rise to the level of an official red flag but worried those who'd been training deputies for decades. Kavanaugh had a concerning tendency to jump to conclusions during training scenarios without taking the time to gather sufficient information first. He would assume guilt based on minimal or even non-existent evidence. He would escalate situations that didn't require or warrant escalation. He would perceive threats and criminal activity where more experienced deputies saw ordinary, lawful interactions. The instructors had mentioned these patterns in their reports and evaluations. They had recommended that he receive extra attention and closer supervision during his field training phase. But ultimately, they had passed him through the academy because he technically met all the minimum requirements on paper. His field training officer, Sergeant Patricia Flores, documented multiple concerning incidents over 16 weeks. In week 6, Kavanaugh stopped a Hispanic man outside a convenience store, demanding identification based solely on appearance. The man was a local teacher. In week 9, he followed a black teenager through a park convinced of drug activity despite zero observable criminal behavior. The teen was an honors student. In week 12, he aggressively questioned a woman sitting in her car outside a bank. She was a bank employee on lunch break. Sergeant Flores recommended extending Kavanaugh's training by 8 weeks, citing his pattern of initiating contact without reasonable suspicion, difficulty accepting correction, and tendency to perceive threats where none existed. Her recommendation was denied. The sheriff's office was 63 deputies short. Budget cuts had eliminated academy classes. The agency needed bodies in patrol vehicles. Kavanaugh was cleared for solo patrol after 16 weeks instead of the recommended 24. That Saturday, Kavanaugh was working day shift in District 2, 3 hours into his shift, with only a speeding warning and a lost delivery driver call. He was looking for something substantial that would demonstrate he was a proactive deputy. At 1:38 p.m., dispatch broadcast a suspicious person call at the Bashas on Pima Road. The caller declined to provide a name and reported someone acting suspiciously near produce, possibly shoplifting. The description was vague, with no specific criminal activity alleged. A properly trained deputy would have recognized this as a racially motivated call, responded with a walkthrough, and cleared it as unfounded. But Kavanaugh saw it as an opportunity. He arrived at the parking lot, activated his body camera, and walked inside. He scanned the produce section and walked through aisles, seeing nothing suspicious. Then he spotted a man standing in the checkout lane, holding a basket and looking at his phone. To everyone else, this looked like a customer waiting to pay. But to Kavanaugh, conditioned by unexamined bias, this looked wrong and out of place. His mind constructed a narrative without evidence. This must be the person from the call, probably concealing merchandise, standing in line to create legitimacy. Need to investigate. Do you think officers create criminal narratives in their minds rather than observing actual illegal behavior? Drop your answer below. Kavanaugh approached the checkout lane where the customer stood. "What's going on, man?" the customer asked calmly, noticing the deputy walking directly toward him with purpose. "What are you doing out here?" Kavanaugh positioned himself strategically between the man and the exit, a tactical placement designed to prevent any potential flight. "I need to talk to you for a minute. Step over here away from the line." The man didn't move from his spot in line. "Shopping. Just minding my business, buying groceries like everyone else here. Is there a problem, officer?" "I got a call about someone causing trouble in this store. You match part of the description we received." The man's expression shifted noticeably from mild confusion to recognition. He'd lived this exact scenario hundreds of times through the experiences of his clients over 17 years of civil rights practice. "A description? You don't even know me. I've been here buying groceries for my meal prep. I haven't caused any trouble. I haven't even interacted with anyone except to say excuse me when reaching past someone for vegetables. Then show me your ID so we can clear this up quickly and you can go on your way." "I'm not giving you ID without a lawful reason under Arizona law. What's the actual probable cause here? What specific criminal activity do you suspect me of committing or being about to commit?" Kavanaugh's face flushed visibly red. Most people in his limited experience complied immediately and without question when he demanded identification. They were intimidated by the uniform and the authority it represented. The fact that this man was calmly refusing and using precise legal terminology registered in Kavanaugh's biased and inadequately trained mind as defiance, as evidence of guilt, as confirmation that this person must be hiding something criminal and needed to be controlled and investigated further. "I can detain you until we figure this out and verify your story." The man took a slow, deliberate breath, clearly recognizing that this situation was escalating in exactly the dangerous pattern he'd spent years warning law enforcement agencies about in his training sessions. "Detain me? Buddy, I'm the civil rights attorney who trains half this department on Fourth Amendment violations. I literally teach the class on unlawful detention that you apparently either didn't attend or didn't pay attention to. I'm standing in a checkout line with groceries I'm about to pay for with my credit card. I have committed absolutely no crimes. I am not required to show you identification under Arizona state law, and you have absolutely no legal basis whatsoever to detain me for any reason." The checkout lane went silent. The cashier froze. Other customers turned to watch. Phones came out. The store manager was walking toward them. Kavanaugh's face went pale. Civil rights attorney, trains the department, knows the law. This wasn't some random customer he could bully. But Kavanaugh had already committed and asserted authority in front of witnesses. His pride and ego trapped him into continuing down a path that would end his career. "I don't care who you say you are. You're refusing to cooperate. That's obstruction." "Obstruction of what? Investigation? There's no investigation. There's no crime. Turn around and put your hands behind your back," Kavanaugh said, pulling his handcuffs. The store manager arrived. "Officer, what's happening? This is one of our regular customers." "Ma'am, step back. This is police business." The customer kept his hands raised and visible. "Deputy Kavanaugh, you are violating my Fourth Amendment rights. You have no reasonable suspicion or probable cause. You've initiated unlawful detention based solely on shopping while black. If you touch me, you will be committing assault. The lawsuit will end your career and cost this county millions." But Kavanaugh had stopped listening. He was operating on emotion now. Anger at being challenged. Fear of looking weak. Pride that wouldn't allow admitting mistakes. He grabbed the man's arm. "Don't touch me," the man said firmly, pulling back without striking. "You have no authority." Kavanaugh grabbed harder, trying to spin him around. The man resisted, not violently, but with firm resistance of someone refusing to submit to illegal force. "Stop resisting," Kavanaugh shouted. "I'm not resisting. I'm refusing an illegal detention. There's a difference. Call your supervisor." Kavanaugh pulled the man backward. The man maintained balance. "Someone call 911, a customer shouted. "They are 911, another voice responded bitterly. The store manager had her phone out calling corporate security and the sheriff's office dispatch, demanding a supervisor immediately. Multiple customers were recording. The body camera on Kavanaugh's chest was documenting everything. Kavanaugh forced the man against the checkout counter. The basket tumbled, apples rolled, orange juice cracked and leaked. Kavanaugh yanked the man's left arm behind his back and snapped a handcuff around his wrist. "You are making the biggest mistake of your career," the man said. "I am an attorney. I am a customer. I have committed 0 crimes. You just assaulted me on camera in front of 50 witnesses." Kavanaugh secured the second cuff. His hands shook as reality began penetrating. He fumbled for his radio. "Dispatch, Unit 472. I have one in custody at Bosch's on Pima. Need transport?" "What's the charge?" the dispatcher asked skeptically. Kavanaugh hesitated. "Obstruction and failure to identify." Arizona's not a stop and identify state unless there's reasonable suspicion of an underlying offense. "What's the predicate criminal activity?" Kavanaugh had no answer. "Just send the transport," he said desperately. Should officers face automatic suspension when they cannot articulate the crime they're arresting someone for? Let me know what you think. Sergeant Patricia Flores arrived 8 minutes later. She saw the handcuffed man, crowd with phones, angry store manager, spilled groceries, and orange juice spreading across the floor. She knew immediately this was catastrophic. Kavanaugh tried to explain, but Flores stopped him and turned to the handcuffed man. "Sir, I'm Sergeant Patricia Flores. Can you tell me what happened?" The man's voice was calm but edged. "Sergeant, my name is Attorney Jamal Richardson. I suspect you know who I am since I've taught constitutional policing classes you've attended. I was standing in checkout preparing to pay when your deputy approached without cause, demanded ID without reasonable suspicion, threatened illegal detention, and when I refused his unconstitutional orders, he assaulted me and handcuffed me. It's all on his body camera, witnessed by 50 people. Clear Fourth Amendment violation." Flores knew the name. Every deputy in Maricopa County knew Jamal Richardson. Multiple settlements won against the county. Expert witness in federal trials. The attorney who taught classes on avoiding exactly this. And now a deputy she'd said wasn't ready had just arrested him for buying groceries. "Mr. Richardson, I'm removing these handcuffs immediately. I apologize. This should not have happened. Your apologies don't uncuff me. Your deputy violated my rights and assaulted me because he saw a black man and assumed I was criminal. No evidence, no crime, just bias and a badge." Flores unlocked the cuffs. Jamal's wrists were red where the metal had been too tight. The store manager stepped forward. "This man is a regular customer for years. He did nothing wrong. Your deputy harassed and assaulted him for shopping. I'll provide statements." Flores turned to Kavanaugh. "Badge, gun. Now, you're suspended pending investigation." The body camera footage was downloaded within hours. Store security footage preserved, witness videos collected. The evidence was overwhelming. A civil rights attorney shopping peacefully, detained and arrested without cause by a deputy who couldn't articulate a crime. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office issued a statement that evening, apologizing and announcing Kavanaugh's administrative leave. The local news ran the story on every broadcast. The body camera footage went viral, 1 million views in 12 hours. Jamal Richardson filed his federal lawsuit 19 days after the incident. The complaint named Deputy Kavanaugh, Sergeant Flores for failing to train him, the Sheriff's Office, and Maricopa County. The claims were devastating. Unlawful seizure violating the Fourth Amendment, false arrest without probable cause, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, violation of equal protection, failure to train and supervise, deliberate indifference to constitutional rights, racially motivated enforcement. The county's attorneys reviewed the evidence and reached an immediate conclusion. This could not go to trial. The body camera footage was indefensible, showing a peaceful customer, a deputy approaching without cause, clear refusal based on constitutional grounds, physical force on a non-resisting individual, and arrest without articulable crime. The county settled 9 months later for $4,700,000 from the general fund and insurance reserves. Taxpayer money. The settlement included no admission of wrongdoing, though the video evidence made denial absurd. Deputy Kavanaugh's termination became official 10 weeks after the incident. The letter was brutal. He initiated contact without reasonable suspicion, demanded identification without legal basis, escalated to force when the individual lawfully refused, arrested without probable cause, demonstrated racial bias, violated policy, state law, and federal protections. His employment is terminated immediately with no possibility of rehire. Kavanaugh's name entered the National Decertification Index, ensuring no other law enforcement agency would hire him anywhere in the United States. His union appeal was rejected after reviewing the footage. He issued a statement. "I made serious errors in judgment. I allowed my assumptions to override my training and violated his rights. I accept responsibility and apologize." The apology was meaningless. It didn't address the racial profiling or explain why he saw crime where none existed. The Department of Justice opened an investigation finding systemic problems: inadequate field training, rushing deputies onto solo patrol, insufficient bias training, lack of supervision, disciplinary systems rarely resulting in consequences, pressure prioritizing filling positions over ensuring competence. The DOJ mandated comprehensive reforms: field training extended from 16 to 24 weeks with no exceptions, mandatory implicit bias training before solo patrol with annual refreshers, body camera review within 48 hours of all detentions, early intervention systems to identify deputies with problematic patterns, independent review board for force incidents involving minorities, public reporting of complaints, federal monitoring for 5 years. Why do law enforcement agencies rush training and ignore red flags just to fill positions? Comment your thoughts below. Jamal Richardson used his settlement to establish a nonprofit legal defense fund providing free representation in police misconduct cases. He continued his practice, but devoted increasing time to advocacy, testifying before the state legislature, conducting community training on rights, and mentoring young civil rights attorneys. He gave a keynote address at a conference 10 months later. "I have degrees from top universities, 17 years practicing civil rights law. I teach officers how to do their jobs constitutionally. I have resources, connections, and credibility. And despite all that, I was handcuffed in a grocery store for shopping while black. If this can happen to me, imagine what happens to people without those advantages. The young man who doesn't know he can refuse an unlawful search. The mother questioned in front of her children. The teenager who doesn't have access to an attorney. This isn't about one deputy making one mistake. This is about a system training law enforcement to see black people as inherently suspicious, teaching officers to demand compliance rather than earn respect, rushing people onto streets before they understand the Constitution, protecting officers who violate rights, settling lawsuits with taxpayer money instead of fixing problems. Kavanaugh's career is over. Appropriate. The county paid nearly $5 million. Accountability. But I'm still the man arrested while buying vegetables. Still the person who tenses seeing patrol vehicles. And I'm one of the lucky ones because I knew my rights, stayed calm, had witnesses and cameras, had resources to fight back. What about everyone else? What about people who don't make news? What about routine stops never recorded? What about harassment never resulting in consequences? We measure justice in settlements and terminations, but real justice would mean this never happened. Real justice would mean deputies who see people as people. Real justice would mean training, emphasizing de-escalation. Real justice would mean accountability before lawsuits. The reforms were significant. Extended training gave deputies more time to develop judgment. Bias training forced uncomfortable conversations. Oversight created accountability. But reforms always come after trauma, after someone pays the price. They never come soon enough to prevent harm. Jamal still shops at that Bosch's but only uses self-checkout now. No opportunities for confrontation. He shouldn't have to calculate the safest way to buy groceries based on skin color. Dante Kavanaugh is 27 now. His career lasted 11 months. He works at a car rental agency. His mistake follows him forever through the National Decertification Index. Some might feel sympathy. A young man whose career was destroyed by one incident, but that incident was choices. Multiple choices, to see criminality where none existed, to demand compliance without legal basis, to use force instead of conversation, to arrest instead of apologize. Every choice was his. Every choice had alternatives. Every choice violated constitutional rights. The real tragedy isn't that Kavanaugh's career ended. The real tragedy is the system put him there before he was ready. That staffing needs mattered more than proper training. That quotas mattered more than competence. The question remains whether we've learned anything, whether reforms will survive past federal monitoring, whether the next budget crisis will shorten training again, whether pressure to fill positions will override competence. Because if we don't fix the system that created Kavanaugh, if we don't address problems rushing unready officers onto streets, then we're waiting for the next attorney arrested while shopping, the next agent detained at their post, the next father handcuffed before his children, the next person learning that existing while black can be treated as reasonable suspicion. Comment below if law enforcement agencies should be legally prohibited from clearing officers for solo patrol until completing a minimum 2-year supervised training period with demonstrated competence in constitutional policing, de-escalation, and bias recognition, with no exceptions for staffing shortages or budget constraints. Because when we prioritize filling positions over proper training, this happens. Constitutional violations, million-dollar settlements, trust destroyed, communities traumatized. And if you believe these stories need to be told, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding agencies prioritize training over numbers. We're going to keep fighting for people who deserve to exist without being criminalized. This isn't just about Dante Kavanaugh and Jamal Richardson. It's about all of us and the standard we're willing to accept. Whether we keep repeating mistakes or finally acknowledge that proper training isn't optional but essential, that bias recognition is professional competence. That preparing officers isn't a luxury but a necessity, because the cost isn't just settlement dollars. It's trust destroyed, communities traumatized, people who no longer feel safe doing ordinary things, and that cost is far higher than any lawsuit can capture.